This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, the podcast.
You know, with all the financial challenges that we have, how are people doing when it comes to saving for retirement? Well, this is Cheryl Casone on Fox Business. She outlines a new study from Bankrate. Here's what she has to say.
57% of Americans say they feel behind on their retirement savings, and 48% of workers with a specific retirement goal don't think they're going to be able to meet it. That's according to a new Bankrate survey. Ramsey Solutions research also finding 37% of Americans say they owe more on credit cards than they have in retirement savings. This as Americans are struggling financially due to high inflation and high interest rates.
Well, I mean, a couple things she hits there that I think a lot of us can identify with. Credit card debt has been off the charts, some of the biggest numbers we've ever seen. Inflation has been record high. So a lot of folks literally living off their credit cards, meaning they don't have the money to put away for their retirement savings. But if you have the opportunity to work with somebody who's maybe, 3 to 5 years from retirement, Mark, how can you help them get on track?
Boy, that's a great question. That's the ideal time. If we can get with people 5 to 10 years out is really my goal, but certainly within 5 years, there's things we can do. You think in terms of tax categorization, what opportunities are they feeding? Are they going into the Roth 401k, either option versus a traditional? Are we converting old traditional pre-tax monies, tax-deferred monies into tax-free Roth IRA status? Those are things that we can do during the lead-up years. Ideally, we want to have conversions done before age 63. So there's certainly things we can do there. The other big thing is we can be reviewing their insurance plans. I mean, we need to have some kind of long-term care plan in place, and we can often exchange or replace old life insurance and annuity plans with newer ones that I call multi-purpose plans because they offer long-term care benefits. So in the case of life insurance, you can use the life insurance benefit for yourself as the insured if you need long-term care assistance. Same thing with the annuities, is there's often, with some of these plans, the ability to access more money than what you've actually accumulated. And so if you have life insurance and annuities that's more than 10 years old, well, that's something that needs to be considered, and health permitting, we want to get that stuff replaced or exchanged. So there's a number of things we can do, certainly increasing savings, helping people, really hone in on how much can we set aside. Because the truth is not all of us retire on the timeline that we want. It's 40+% of people retire prematurely for reasons entirely outside of their control. So we need to prepare for that reality. But back to her comment that many people feel like they haven't done enough. They're not quite where they wanted to be. Well, that's the case for most people, and certainly most Americans. And so what we try to encourage people is let's not look back with regret. Let's look forward with optimism and do what we can now. Sometimes that means revising our goals, maybe working longer than we had hoped to. But the sooner we start having these conversations, the sooner we start adjusting expectations, either in terms of being able to save more or spending less, or maybe rehousing into a different situation so that we are more financially free when that target retirement date comes. So there's so much we can do if we can get together 3 to 5 years, definitely, ideally 5 to 10 years prior to retirement.
Something I wanted to just kind of hone on here, because we touched on it a few moments ago about it's been a rough couple years, inflation, credit card debt. We've seen the job market fluctuate. A lot of folks may have been forced into retirement, or maybe they're forced into a lower income job and whatnot, thinking, look, I'm just trying to put food on the table. My car engine just went and I got to figure out how to, afford that. The last thing I'm thinking about, nor can I afford, is planning for retirement. So probably calling Mark right now and talking about all this stuff is pointless. I don't have anything to offer. What do you say to those folks?
Well, consider this your chirping fire alarm, because there always is things we can do. There's always maintenance issues. So let's do that retirement readiness. Let's just see where you're at, see if there's things that can be repositioned. I always find opportunities in people's plans, and it's not because it's so spectacular. It's just that everyone's got issues, and I've been doing this for 32 years. And so I can see the patterns, I can see the opportunities. And there's that old expression, if you have a problem in the future, well, knowing that means that you have a problem now. And the sooner we deal with it, the better off you'll be. So let's just get together. There's no stress. There's no commitment with this. It's just a chance to see if we're a good fit and to see, are there things that should be acted on? Because again, if things need to be acted on in the future, better to start earlier, because the pain will be a lot less the sooner we deal with it.
Yeah, you always say that, income is kind of the fuel for retirement. So think about it like this, as far as the fuel and gas component. Think about this, stick with me here. Let's say that you were going to drive on the highway straight for 100 miles. You got that one gas tank. But we told you what mile 82, the car's going to break down. Do you think that at mile 50, you might want to pull over and fill up a little bit, right? You're going to be proactive to avoid that problem is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I just would really welcome people to come in. You know, we live out here in the desert, and I often use the example with folks. If you're headed into the Mojave Desert, you want to make absolutely sure you've got sufficient fuel in the tank, because there's long stretches there where there are no services. And that's very much like retirement in some ways. If you don't have sufficient fuel in the tank before you get there, you want to know before you leave, the last bit of gas stations and service, because once you're in the middle of that desert and you notice that the tank is low, we got a real serious problem. Can you imagine the absolute anxiety that people in that situation would be in? 100 plus degrees here in the Mojave, and they know they're not going to quite make it to the end destination. That kind of anxiety is real. People live it, and that's not the way any of us want to live. So again, the sooner we can get to it, the better. We are sending the alarm out now to say, if you're approaching your planned retirement age, now's the time to check the oil, check the gas, and make sure the fuel's in place. We can help you with that, and it's a complimentary service.
Do we forget the lessons of history? Investment strategist Paul Dietrich tells Fox Business that we may repeat the dot-com bubble burst of 2000.
If we go into a recession, everything is going to fall, including the best stocks. I mean, Amazon was down 92.5% back in the dot-com recession. Microsoft was down 74%. Apple was down about the same amount. They're all going to fall, and partially they are overvalued. This is the most overvalued stock market that we've ever had, period.
All right, so let's break this down. I mean, he's right when he talks about the dot-com bubble, et cetera, years ago. We have seen some major players start selling off some things as of late. So should the alarm start going off and we need to be getting in defensive position for a recession, Mark? What do you think?
Well, I don't think we should panic. I think we should all realize that these recessions are normal events in the marketplace. I mean, and none of us can accurately predict exactly when they're going to occur. So we need to live our lives in a mode that will withstand those kinds of shocks to the system. I mean, when COVID hit, that was a big shock to the system, for example. The credit crisis of 2008 was a great shock to the system. And he said, back 2001, the tech bubble, when that burst, those were big shocks to the system. We can't forecast exactly when these things are going to happen. So we need to live our life with what I call a two-pocket strategy, where a portion of our money is insulated from the effects of the market, where it's not going to be lost because of market downturns that we can't control, because it's all a question of timing. The timing of those events occurs right before retirement or early after retirement, when we're having to pull money from those accounts. We really need to have a principal protected pocket into which we can reach, so that we can basically buy time. It's all about time again. We cannot forecast this. I mean, God alone knows when these things are going to happen. So I don't want to panic people the way that it sounded a little bit like his tone might panic people. I don't want to do that. I would just say there's things we can do on an ongoing basis to safeguard our money, so we don't have to get worked up and get all Chicken Little about the sky falling, because the sky will fall, and the sun will come back and shine again. Those things are just going to happen. It's the nature of the economy. And so let's put together plans in place so you don't have to get neurotic about when these things are going to happen. They will happen, but they shouldn't be such that it has to stall our retirement plans or cripple us emotionally or otherwise. So let's look at these two-pocket strategies. And if people have never thought in those terms, well, come visit with us, because there's ways you can grow your money very respectably outside of the market while also having money still in the market. We just don't want to have all of our money exposed to potential loss, and especially not as we approach retirement, when people's natural emotions go towards preservation. They want to preserve their decades of work, because they recognize that, again, time is the one thing we don't have an abundance of as we get older. So we have to think differently. And knowing that, let's start thinking differently now. Let's not wait until the crisis event and then try to panic and respond.
For years, retirees have relied on this 4% rule. We've all heard about it. We've even talked about it, Mark. It states that they should plan to withdraw 4% of their assets every year and adjust that number for inflation. But then you have personal finance expert Susie Orman. She disagrees. She suggests withdrawing only 3% a year. She believes that prepares you for the unforeseen things like health emergencies. But What do you think overall? 3%, 4%, this whole idea. What are your thoughts?
Well, this is one of the few areas I actually really agree with Susie on. But the truth is, it's not original to her. I mean, the academics have been saying now for a decade that this 4% rule that was introduced in 1994 by William Bengen, he was a little-known certified financial planner in the Midwest. He wrote an article to a financial journal that said, hey, guys, if all your clients' money is in mutual funds, you can take 4% out and never run out of money. You can do that every year and be fine through retirement. Well, he now even has admitted that he had some very optimistic projections in there. He says that was a worst-case scenario. Well, no, it was actually kind of a best-case scenario because he assumed things like 8.8% rate of return on stocks, 6.8% on bonds, things we haven't seen over the last 30 years. And so the academics are very consistent saying you probably shouldn't take more than 2 to 3% out if you're primarily dealing with a mutual fund portfolio. But we can show you how to use principal protected plans. Many of the annuities, I've just done some cases this last week for clients where we're getting payout rates that are up in the 6 to 8% range, contractually guaranteed every month for the remainder of the client's life as well as their spouse. And so depending upon the kind of financial products a person has in their portfolio, you can potentially get greater rates of return, sometimes 2 to 3% more than what the academics would advise you to take out of a mutual fund portfolio. But that again is because we don't put all your money in mutual funds because that's just not prudent planning. There's lots of things people can do, but I totally agree with her that you shouldn't be thinking of a 4% rule. I mean, that rule did not come off of Mount Sinai. God didn't speak it. And any rules that mortal beings make come subject to certain assumptions. So you always have to question the assumptions. And in this case, we know his assumptions were a little too optimistic. So if you've been thinking 4%, we'll encourage you to think otherwise. Come visit with us and we can give you more of a reality check on how to get 4 or more % out, but it won't be out of a mutual fund portfolio alone. So give us a call. If you want to do an income safety kind of check, we can do that for you and see, are your sources of income sustainable? They need to be sustainable. That's our number one goal with our clients, is to make sure they have money they can't outlive. It has to be sustainable, preferably contractually so. And so, yeah, come visit with us. If you don't have certainty about how dependable your future income sources are, we can help you with that. That's a complimentary visit, and we're happy to do it. It's something we do day in and day out, and we love it.
Oscar-winning actor Al Pacino, now 84 years old, has recently released a new memoir called Sonny Boy. And in there, he talks about how he went broke at 70, losing $50 million to his accountant in a Ponzi scheme. Pacino was recently interviewed by the New York Times.
I'm a kind of person, I think, that if I don't understand something very well, I just avoid it. There's no sense. But I moved away from that only because I was always into my work or other kinds of things that had nothing to do with money, except, a fool.
A fool and his money are soon parted.
Are soon parted. That was very applicable.
All right, so a couple things here that I disagree with. He's like, if I don't understand it, I just don't even think about it. Obviously, rule number one, not ideal when it comes to your retirement. But the fact that he was involved in a Ponzi scheme, this happens day in and day out, by the way, it's very important to understand how you should vet financial professionals like yourself, Mark. And, what kind of questions should our listeners be asking to make sure they find, somebody that's on the up and up?
Oh, I think it's a great question. They need to certainly understand what the professional's educational background is, what their philosophy is, if they have a particular focus to their practice, if they have any known expertise. They probably should visit with some of the clients. I mean, we invite people to come to our client social events. They can talk to our existing clients, ask them whatever questions they want. The sad thing here to me is that he basically went asleep at the wheel. He was negligent. He gave discretionary authority to a third party that he never should have done. I mean, I never take discretionary authority over my client accounts. We always require a custodian between us and the client's money. I can never do a Bernie Madoff or these kind of things that he's describing. And so you need to know what kind of structures are in place to protect you as an investor. And ideally, you should be working with a fiduciary who's under not only a moral, but also a legal obligation to act in your best interest. And so there's a lot of things that a client can do to vet the financial professional before making any commitments. But certainly they need to be in touch with that financial professional and not just, walking away and focusing on other things the way he's describing. That's so unfortunate. He was taken advantage of.
Oh my gosh, of course he was. This happens day in and day out, from the rich and famous to the lonely grandmother at home that somebody calls and, she gives them all their money, her social security number, folks. This happens every single day. And, Mark, you mentioned a couple things here. Somebody that has your best interest at heart. We've heard the word fiduciary for quite some time now. And a quick, elevator pitch to those listening. What makes you, different from the other financial guys out there, other financial professionals? And what makes you somebody that it's easy to build a relationship and trust when it comes to saying, hey, Mark, by the way, here's my whole life savings. Make it work for me.
Well, I think there's a lot of good advisors out there, a lot of good, honest, and well-intended people. I think what makes us unique, though, is that we have a very specific focus. It's a threefold mission of first creating income people can outlive, making sure that money's tax advantaged, and also protected. And I also came to the industry from a unique background. I've mentioned before that my father was a military chaplain, and so I was raised with certain religious beliefs and standards about service. And I don't believe that life is about money. Money is simply fuel. And so I think that's a philosophical difference that people need to understand. So it's not about the money. It's about the experiences. It's about the people, the relationships that we have, not only professionally with me and my clients, but more importantly with my clients and their loved ones. And so acknowledging these things out of the gate, I think, is critical because it shifts the focus entirely. So we would invite people to come in and meet us, come to our events. It's a good way of getting a feel for who we are. I teach this 6-hour class at the college. That gives people a great opportunity to learn a little bit about us, talk to our existing clients, come experience the office, come see the kind of people we are, and then make your decision. Quite bluntly, I tell people every day, we don't want you doing business with us unless you're completely comfortable. And that means lots of conversation to get people there.
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.